I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. And we really greatly appreciate you being with us today. And you know, we have another cram-packed schedule.
I know, I'm really excited about today's show. You know, we've got a new guest on the show and really kind of a new organization that, you know, you'll be hearing from over the next few months. And we've got a few other folks that are going to be on Bernheim Arboretum, which is the state arboretum of Kentucky. And, you know, they're a really good group over there. But today we're going to have Andrew Berry. He's their director of conservation, and he's going to be talking about golden eagles in large forests here in Kentucky. So that's pretty cool.
Right. Some of the pictures he gave were magnificent.
I know. So yeah, you'll enjoy his presentation for sure. And then Laurie Thomas has got a new tree of the week for us. She's going to be doing the Mockernut hickory this week, and that's a pretty cool tree that you'll want to make sure you check out. And then I'll give you an introduction to our 2022 Kentucky Woodland Owners Short Course and let you know what's going on with that program, how you can participate in it, and how you can get registered for that. So yeah, really excited about today's show. As always, if you have questions, use the chat function in Zoom, and we'll respond that way. And if you're on Facebook Live, you can use the comment section. But Renee, excited about today's show.
Definitely. So let's go ahead and get started. So Andrew, if you want to turn your camera on. Hi, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you being on today. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about.
Okay, well, I'm excited to be here too, and thank you all for having me. So again, I'm Andrew Berry. I'm the Director of Conservation over here at Bernheim Forest. And we've been doing golden eagle research for a little over a decade now. And we work with the golden eagle team from across the eastern United States. It's called the Eastern Golden Eagle Working Group. And we've been actually tracking a couple of golden eagles since 2015. And so I wanted to share some of that with you all and talk about, you know, really a bird that's down here in the winter, but doesn't, you know, get seen by a lot of people. So
great. Yeah, looking forward to your presentation. You can go ahead and get started if you'd like.
Okay, excellent. Well, let me share screen here. So again, I'm Andrew Berry out here at Bernheim Forest, and we are a nonprofit, about 16,140 acres that's just south of Louisville. So if you all are familiar with the knobs, kind of the you know, smaller than mountains but larger than hills section that surrounds the bluegrass, we're tucked right in there. We have been studying golden eagles for, like I said, a little bit over 10 years. It started off, you know, early in Bernheim's history, there were sightings. People would report seeing, you know, golden eagles or other large birds throughout the forest. And there was a lot of questions about, you know, where were they coming from? How often were they here? So, you know, as camera trapping started to pick up, you know, about 10, 15 years ago, and cameras started getting better, we started putting some of those out with some deer carcasses in the forest. And we were stunned. We were getting, you know, images of not just, you know, individual golden eagles, but also pairs of them. This here is a picture from within Bernheim. And, you know, as we continued on with our research, we discovered that, you know, some of these pairs were hanging out in certain parts of the forest. There was a little bit of predictability to them. And so working with the team, first with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, and then a group called Cellular Tracking Technologies, which makes transmitters, and also are biologists that work on golden eagles and other raptors throughout the world. We were able to successfully trap one of them. HARPER was first, the male golden eagle. And then a few years later, we were able to trap his mate and attach transmitters to them. And so we were able to track them around Bernheim and see what they're doing. Just a little bit of background of the golden eagles. You know, this is a global, you know, creature, and they're found all throughout the Northern Hemisphere. You know, there's a lot of history and lore around golden eagles. They're a symbol for a lot of countries. They're you know, just strongly associated with native cultures, and you know, people have been, you know, utilizing golden eagle feathers, you know, in ornamentation going back what we think as far as 100,000 years. So there's a really long human history around golden eagles. Actually, humans are the only predators of golden eagles, and so there's a lot of tension there, and that's often why you find the golden eagles in such remote and wild places. You know, they don't want to be around people. If you look at the North American range, and again, with this team that we work with, the Eastern Golden Eagle Working Group, This is from a paper that came out in 2012 that talks about conservation priorities for the eastern golden eagle. And if you look at North America, you know, they're more associated with Western North America throughout the Rockies, Cascades, all the way up into Alaska and down into Mexico. But, you know, people aren't as familiar with the Eastern group, which, you know, is primarily found throughout the Appalachians, but also on up into Canada for the nesting, particularly on the eastern side of the Hudson Bay. But if you look there in the central area, and if you can see my cursor here, there's also kind of a Midwestern group, and they, you know, come down through Minnesota. They migrate just off the tip of Duluth, Minnesota, there on the western side of Lake Superior. And when you look at, you know, where some of these populations from the east and the west overlap, you see a couple of areas. You see one up here in Canada where the western population and the eastern Midwestern group kind of overlap around the Great Slave Lakes area. But you also see around the Great Lakes here in the United States and around the Kentucky area where some of these birds are actually commingling. And so this map was made through, you know, transmitters that are attached to over a couple of hundred golden eagles throughout North America. And so this is just following some of their tracks and movements. Taking what we know from some of these tracked birds, and there's been over 20 birds that have been tracked that have used Kentucky. And we're working again with Trish Miller, Dr. Trish Miller at Conservation Global, and Mike Lanzone with Cellular Tracking Technologies. And, you know, from what we know about the locations of them, we were able to create a kind of a crude golden eagle habitat map for Kentucky. And really what we're looking at here is we know that they have a preference for large forest blocks. Okay, so, you know, when you line that up with the forest map of Kentucky, you know, it's generally there's more concentration of their movement within forest blocks that are over 5,000 acres. So part of that is because they're trying to get away from inhabited areas, stay away from people. But also there's, you know, more prey and also a lot more shelter when they're here, which is generally between November and March is when most of them are here. And so also you look at topography across the state of Kentucky, and you're able to crunch a basic model here that really shows where you could expect to see golden eagles. And you can see there's a lot of habitat left out in eastern Kentucky, you know, throughout the more mountainous regions and through the Daniel Boone National Forest. But also you'll see some sections around Lake Cumberland, particularly below the dam. There's some pretty good habitat down there, but there's also good habitat throughout the knobs, in particular around Bernheim and Fort Knox area, which is some of the largest forests outside Appalachia and Kentucky. And also some habitat down around Mammoth Cave and Land Between the Lakes. So, you know, there are sightings all throughout the state, and it's, you know, it's not necessarily random. Part of what we learned is that some of these birds have strong site fidelity. So they're coming back to some of the same areas year after year. And in the case with the Bernheim birds, we were actually able to document that pretty well. And look at their site fidelity, you know, not only here at Bernheim, but on their nesting range up north. So here's just a basic picture of, you know, what they prefer out here at Bernheim, just, you know, unbroken forest. They like that topography because it allows them to catch some winds and thermals that helps them to soar, which they do to, you know, find prey and just to, you know, move around throughout the knobs. This is a picture of Harper when we trapped him with Cellular Tracking Technologies. That's Dr. Trish Miller on the left and her partner Mike Lanzone on the right. And you can see the transmitter that's attached to him. And so he just wears that like a backpack. The good thing about golden eagles as a subject is that, as you all know, the weight of a transmitter is kind of a limiting factor, especially if you're studying something like, you know, something small like a songbird or a bat. But with these golden eagles, they can carry a pretty robust unit, which is able to, you know, take data points every 15 minutes. It's solar charged, so it's able to, you know, last for years. And also it communicates via the cellular towers. And so they will store up data all summer when they're in their nesting range. And then when they start migrating back south and they encounter a cell tower, they'll download that. So in Canada, not so many transmissions, but when they're down here in Kentucky, we'll get a download every few days from these birds, and we can see what they're doing and where they're at. So like I mentioned, Harper was the first eagle, but we also saw that he was hanging out with an eagle. And so we were able to document in the field these two birds interacting. We were able to document them using, bait, the deer carcasses together, kind of cooperating to feed and defend their territory. And so we thought, there was a high likelihood that these two birds might be mates. We didn't know for sure, though. I mean, they could have also just been a pair that was cooperating for another reason. And so we were able, after a really long weekend of about it was over 20 hours of sitting in a blind, we were able to get the mate, ATHENA, to come down, and we were able to trap her and get a transmitter on her in 2019. And so at that point, we think, from what we know, that this is the only pair of golden eagles that's being tracked together anywhere in the world, which is kind of remarkable. We also see them interacting with some other birds, usually aggressively, but as in the case of this juvenile that I'm showing right here, you can tell this is a juvenile golden eagle by the white tail feathers. We've seen them interact with the juvenile several times in a way that wasn't threatening, and we think there's a possibility that they may be bringing their young down with them, or having some way where the female would fly down with them and kind of teach them and stay with them throughout the first winter to help them learn how to hunt. But when you look at the tracks of this pair that we were looking at, particularly back here from winter of 2020 and 21, you can see how these birds spend a lot of time within the large forest blocks around Bernheim. They do fly out and cross some roads occasionally. They head over to Fort Knox. They head into some of these knobs areas south of Bernheim down in Nelson County. They will cross I-65 and the Bluegrass Parkway, but usually when they do that, they're pretty high up. So they generally tend to stay out of sight. Some people call them the ghosts of the Eastern Forest, because they are in here and around, but most people that live in Kentucky have never seen a golden eagle. And probably if they saw one flying high in the sky, they probably wouldn't know it was a golden eagle. They'd probably just think it was a vulture or something like that. But we've, documented what we've seen from other birds that are tracked throughout the eastern United States, that these large forests are really critical for them during the winter. They're not comfortable around people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be forest. We do see examples of them using strip mines and other open, but still at the same time, wild, large tracts of land for hunting and also scavenging. So they not only do they hunt throughout the winter, but they scavenge a lot of carcasses, and with a lot of deer that have rebounded in Kentucky, and also the turkey. There's probably a better prey source for these eagles right now than there has been in a long time, especially early in the 20th century. So this is Golden Eagle Ridge. This is a place in Bernheim where people have been seeing golden eagles for a long time, and it just turns out that this is where this pair kind of centers themselves too. They like it because it's, number one, tucked into the interior of Bernheim, 16,000 acres, but also we do management for prairies and glades throughout here, and so we've got a complex and mosaic of open habitats and forested habitats and a lot of prey, and we try to leave them alone as much as possible and let them feel comfortable. So this is a better look at the transmitter that is on Harper. You can see the solar panel. These things are remarkably durable. They last through all of the the weather and the rigors for several years. Harper's lasted over 3 years, and Athena's now has been going over 3 years as well. One of the things that we learned from this project that really was, I think, probably one of the more interesting things that came out of it, was that this pair, while they spend the entire winter together, they migrate separately to get back to the nesting ground. And then when they leave the nest, in October, they migrate separately again back to Bernheim, and they come right back together and meet up, often within a couple of hours of arrival. You know, and the way they do it, you know, Athena, the female, she has gone up through Michigan historically. So she goes up through Indiana. They usually split up right around Brown County Forest when you get up into the knobs in Indiana. She will go up through Michigan and she crosses at the Straits of Mackinac and then proceeds up around the eastern coast of Lake Superior on her way to her breeding ground. And then the male Harper, so, you know, usually they'll leave within maybe a few days of each other. He'll go similar route up into Indiana, and then he splits off through Illinois. He tends to spend more time in Wisconsin. So there's an area called the Driftless area there. It's just west of Madison, Wisconsin. It's rugged. It's a lot like Bernheim. It has topography. And he flies around quite a bit there, kind of recharges, and then heads up past Duluth, Minnesota, over the Boundary Waters area. And then on up to the nest. And so they've got a couple of areas up there that they maintain. This is just a map here that kind of shows an elevation profile of how we track them, and you can track them in three dimensions. And you can see that, you know, when they're flying over northern Illinois, they peak out at 6,388 feet. So sometimes when they cross through these urban areas, especially in the Midwest, they'll go really high in the sky. But then they use those thermals to push up, and then they take these long, slow descents, which can be 3 to 4 miles. So really a nice energy saving strategy for them along those migrations, which are almost 2,000 miles back to the nest. And then when they arrive, they're heading for the Hudson Bay lowlands, which is an area just south of Churchill, Manitoba. Churchill is a big destination for polar bear watchers and beluga whale watchers and northern lights. And so they tuck themselves into a national park up there called WAPUSK. And this is just an expansive, flat marshy area that's dotted with these lakes of 1,000 acres or more, leading into the Hudson Bay. It's a very wild area. What they're doing is they're heading back up there. They arrive in April. They get their nest ready, they lay their eggs, and they coincide the hatching of the chicks with the arrival of the snow geese and all the other waterfowl that come up to these lakes when they thaw out. And that way they're able to start feeding their young. And we think most of what their diet consists of throughout the summer is waterfowl off these lakes. So just to talk a little bit about threats to golden eagles, particularly down here when they're in, the lower 48 during the winter. Loss of habitat is a big threat to these golden eagles, particularly large tracts of natural land. Again, they want to avoid people and they want to have room to be able to feel comfortable while they're hunting or scavenging. Lead poisoning, of course, is a big threat. If they scavenge carcasses that have been dumped, particularly after, the November hunting season, that can be a big problem. And we see a lot of bald eagles that fall victim to that too. Incidental trapping is a threat to them. That's people that might be trapping for other species, and the golden eagles get into the traps. Wind turbines, there's a lot of studies going on around impacts for wind turbines, which have popped up all along their migratory route, particularly up in Indiana and Illinois. These wind turbines are increasing, and we expect over the coming decades, you're going to see more and more of those. So that's just another thing they've got to navigate while they're migrating. And then climate change. Climate change it is impacting them because they are so susceptible to high temperatures during the nesting season, and the chicks can very easily overheat. So that's another reason why they're nesting so high up in the north. And so, looking at forests in Kentucky, again, I showed that map earlier. We've got a number of large forests that are under threat right now. They're slowly being divided, encroached upon, and you're seeing those shrink. You're seeing the quality of the forest impacted as well. So, keeping those large forests intact, protecting large tracts, and keeping them wild is really one of the things we can work for. Particularly around Bernheim. And around Bernheim, we are under threat. So you look at a view like the one we just had, which is forested. But you can see in this picture, looking into Bernheim from the Shepherdsville area, you can see how all of these industrial warehouses and other developments have popped up, and they're threatening and poking into the wilderness area. And you know, golden eagles don't like that. And so that's one of the challenges we're seeing. And it's one of the things that we're hoping we can mitigate so we can keep them around as long as possible. It's just another part of our unique biodiversity here at Bernheim. And it's a story that we like to tell. So with that, just want to thank y'all for listening, and I'm glad to take any questions or comments about the project. Thanks.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Could you tell me about how much do they weigh?
So the females are larger than the males, and the female was 11 pounds. The male was about 9 pounds. So they're pretty substantial birds, really strong. And you look at their prey base, you know, it's been documented that they can, you know, even take down deer, you know, in the winter, particularly in deep snow areas. But we think they also hunt a lot of turkey here around Bernheim. So that's a pretty big bird for them to be angling with. You know.
We had some questions in the chat pod. They wanted to know if they are going to Fort Knox during the hunting seasons there for scavenging.
We do see them traveling over to Fort Knox. You know, usually that's a little later in the winter, the two eagles that we track here at Bernheim, but we think there's probably some that use that territory as well. Although I have noticed sometimes they will, if they're over at Fort Knox, they'll leave if there's been a lot of training or explosions. So I think those explosions might, you know, scare off some birds like that.
Makes sense. It'd scare me too.
Yeah.
They're also curious if they're flying the routes their parents taught them. And I don't know, do you have that kind of information?
Can't answer that, but you know, with the juvenile that we've seen them interacting with down here, it makes you wonder if the female is flying down with the chick. We can see when they're nesting up there in the summer. You can see throughout the summer how she will sit on the nest, and then as the young fledges, they do flights together. And you can see how she starts moving around the nest area a little broader with each passing day. So it would make sense that they would probably help them with you know, at least get through that first year. Yeah. But it's not any hard documentation of that.
Yeah, those migration patterns, that was so cool to see that they could, you know, go different ways and end up in the same place. And that was,
that was
work y'all are doing. It really is.
Thank you.
So you can come and visit Bernheim, right? Yeah,
so we're open, you know, 363 days of the year. And, you know, we're just south of Louisville off I-65, so it's easy destination to get to. We've got everything from education programs to arts in nature, forest giants and the spirit nest. We've got a new Placo system, which is a natural based playground that's opened up for kids, and that's going to be expanding over the next few years, in addition to 5,000 accession woody trees and shrubs. So we're a huge arboretum, 40 miles of trails. So if you haven't been to Bernheim, you know, a lot of people from the Lexington area, you know, don't know as much about it. And I know I grew up in Lexington, and I hadn't been to Bernheim, you know, until after I got out of college. But it's really one of those gems in Kentucky. So we invite everybody to come on out.
Yes, no doubt. You know, and Andrea, while I've got you here, I'd like to thank you and Bernheim again. Last year, we had our Kentucky Woodland on a short course at Bernheim, and you all were such gracious hosts. So a big thanks to you. And like you said, I'd encourage our viewers to get out and check out Bernheim. You've got a lot to offer over there.
Definitely. All right. And this will not be the last time you hear from him.
Or Bernheim. Yeah.
Or Bernheim. We'll have him on again next month, I think it is. So we greatly appreciate you joining us.
Yep. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I'll stay on here if anybody has any more questions or anything.
That sounds good. Appreciate you.
All right. Moving on to our tree of the week.
Yeah, so Laurie is back. She's been out programming all over the state. And
one busy lady, Laurie.
Yeah. So it's glad to have you back live on the show, Laurie.
Well, thanks. It's great to be back. And I'm excited for a tree of the week, but I do want to also plug Bernheim as well. we have taken several of the groups I work with, the youth groups, Natural Resources Environmental Science Academy, to Bernheim, and they have done wonderful programming with us there. So a big thumbs up and a big thank you to them, and definitely check them out. It's a great place. So just my little plug for Bernheim. But on to the tree of the week. This is one of our hickories. We do have, I think we have 9 hickories that are native to Kentucky. And so kind of slowly rounding them out. And this is what we learned in forestry is one of the tight bark hickories. It doesn't have that shaggy bark. And so we've got our tree of the week this week, and it's Mockernut hickory. So I'll let you start that up.
All right, thank you.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the tree of the week, the Mockernut hickory. Mockernut hickory, Caria tomentosa, is a medium to large sized deciduous tree that is a member of the Juglandaceae or walnut family. It is one of the most common hickories, especially in the Appalachian areas. Mockernut hickory is also known as white hickory and hognut hickory. Trees typically grow 65 to 100 feet tall and 24 to 36 inches in diameter. In a forested setting, trees typically have long, slender trunks with an open, narrow crown. Trees can live up to 250 years old, and they are an important wildlife tree, and the wood is moderately important for the production of tool handles, lumber, fuel wood, and smoking meats. Mockernut hickory is native to the eastern and central United States and is most abundant in the southern portion of its range. In the northern part of its range, it tends to grow on rocky hills and slopes, and in the Cumberland Mountains, it grows on dry sites or south or west-facing slopes. It grows best in deep, fertile soils and thus grows the largest in the lower Ohio River Basin and in Missouri and Arkansas. In Kentucky, it's widely distributed, but it is found less frequently in the inner bluegrass. Mockernut hickory is able to reproduce via seed and vegetatively. Hickories sprout prolifically from stumps after cutting or fire. Mockernut hickory is classified as shade intolerant, even though it is a relatively slow-growing tree. However, it does respond well to release by opening up of the surrounding canopy. Mockernut hickory is extremely sensitive to fire because of the low insulating capacity of the bark. This hickory is deciduous with alternately arranged compound leaves. The leaves are between 9 to 14 inches long, pinnately compound like a feather, and typically have 7 to 9 leaflets that have serrated margins. The leaf rachis is stout and very pubescent, and the leaflets are green above and pale below and covered in fuzz. The fall leaf color is yellow to golden and can be quite showy. Mockernut hickory is monoecious, meaning a tree has both male and female flowers. The male flowers are drooping catkins, usually in groups of 3s and about 3 to 4 inches long. The female flowers are small in spiked clusters of 2 to 5 at the end of the twig. Typically, the male flowers emerges before the female flowers in the spring. And hickories are known to produce a tremendous amount of pollen that is wind dispersed. The fruit is a 1.5 to 2 inch long elliptical shaped husk that encloses a relatively small edible nut. The husk has 4 ribs and is relatively thick. The fruit matures in early autumn and seeds are dispersed by gravity and wildlife, particularly squirrels. Trees begin seed production around 25 years with good seed production between 40 and 125 years. Trees have good seed crops every 2 to 3 years. And between 50 and 75% of the seeds will germinate. The bark is smooth and gray on young stems. As the tree ages and grows, the bark develops light gray interlacing ridges with dark furrows. The bark does not get shaggy or exfoliate like shell or shagbark hickory. Hickory is among the strongest and hardest woods native to the United States. The heartwood tends to be light to medium brown with a reddish hue, and the sapwood is a paler yellowish brown. Boards with contrasting heartwood and sapwood create a somewhat rustic appearance that's sometimes marketed as calico hickory. It's considered to be non-durable to perishable regarding heartwood decay and also very susceptible to insect attack. The wood is commonly used for products where strength or shock resistance is important, such as tool handles, ladder rungs, and flooring. The wood of the Caria species is also very high in thermal energy content when burned and is used as fuel wood or wood for stoves. Additionally, hickory is used as charcoal in cooking meat, with the smoke imparting additional flavor to the food. Mockernut hickory is a preferred wildlife tree for the hard mast, the nuts, and it's also a browse species, and it's used as a cavity tree and is the larval host for several magnificent moths and butterflies. The nuts are eaten by squirrels, black bear, foxes, rabbits, beaver, and white-footed mice, as well as wood duck, quail, turkey, and red-bellied woodpeckers. The young foliage is browsed by deer, and the tree provides nesting and cover for a variety of birds and mammals. Mockernut hickory is the host plant for the banded hair streak, the giant regal moth, funeral moth, and the luna moth, as well as the hickory horn devil. The national champion Mockernut hickory is, as of 2021, is in Caroline County, Virginia. It's 173 inches in circumference, 140 feet tall, with an 85-foot crown spread. And currently there is no Kentucky champion. Now for a few fun facts about Mockernut hickory. Mockernut has the second highest heating value among the species of hickories. Mockernut hickory is the preferred wood for smoking hams. The common name of mockernut comes from the large, thick-shelled fruit with very small kernels of meat inside. Another common name, white hickory, is from the light-colored wood. The scientific genus name Caria is from Greek and is the name applied to the walnut tree, and tomentosa is from Latin, the Latin tomentos, and means covered with densely matted woolly hairs, referring to the leaf rachis and the underside of the leaf. I'm glad you joined me to learn about one of the several hickories native to Kentucky. I hope you get the opportunity to get out into your woodland, local park, or neighborhood and enjoy the Mockernut hickory.
Well, thank you, Lori. We greatly appreciate that presentation. And
Sure.
you know, I know that you said they were edible, but have you ever had one? I mean, I was just
No, I have never eaten one. And really what they say is it takes a lot to get through that husk. It's a quite thick husk for a very small kernel, but it is edible, but most people don't bother with it because it is so much work just to get that little bit of a kernel out of there. But it is edible.
But it sounds like a lot of wildlife would definitely fight you for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a wildlife favorite. It is very palatable to them. So that's yeah, we'll leave it for wildlife in this instance. There's other things that we can eat, right?
No doubt. I think I'd rather have the pecans, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll handle that. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Great. Great to see you all.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Yeah, very cool.
Oh, we did have another question pop in real quick.
Uh-oh.
Lori, the young trees look like tree of heaven. Are there differences in leaves?
Yeah, so on Tree of Heaven, it's many leaflets. They have much larger pinnately compound leaves. There'll be many more leaflets on the Tree of Heaven, whereas with our Mockernut hickory, we usually have between 7 and 9 leaflets. So it's a much smaller overall leaf with fewer leaflets. Is one difference. Another difference is smell. Tree of Heaven stinks. It has like a rancid peanut butter smell.
Oh.
And with our hickories, they tend to have a nice kind of a lemony, I think of it as kind of a lemony, but it's a pleasing scent, whereas definitely not with Tree of Heaven. So
Oh, good distinguishing there.
yeah.
Something smells like rotten peanut butter.
I knew we didn't like Tree of Heaven. So.
Exactly. Not so much a good name.
I know, yeah.
All right. Well, Billy, you are our next topic coming up with the Woodland Owner Short Course.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get that started. Let me share my screen on that.
This is something that every homeowner, I think, or woodland owner, if they have woods out there, they need to participate in to end up learning more about their woodlands and gaining some knowledge.
No doubt. So again, I'm Billy Thomas. I'm an extension forester here in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at UK, and I'm excited to tell you about the 2022 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course. This is a program that our whole team is involved with, but many, many others are a big part of it as well. And I'll kind of give you some more information about it as we go on. So your first question may be, what is the Woodland Owner Short Course. And we call it WASC around here, WSC. And really what it is it's the largest woodland owner educational program that's offered in Kentucky. And it has so many partners and supporters of it. And I want to kind of just mention a few of those. But one thing that all of these partner organizations share is a dedication in their mission to supporting Kentucky's woodland owners. In Kentucky, the vast majority of our woodlands are privately owned, about 78%. And those are what they do with those woodlands has big implications. So we want to try to support those woodland owners to make sound conservation decisions about their woodlands and help them get the most out of their woodland ownership. We want them to be as healthy and productive as possible. But one of our big partners is the Kentucky Division of Forestry. That's the state agency that's available to come out and meet with woodland owners on a one-on-one basis, develop management plans for a woodland owner, and get them started in many of the management programs that are available to get the most out of their woodlands. So you'll have a chance to meet the Kentucky Division of Forestry at our field tours this year. Also, an important partner is the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. This is the state agency that has biologists that are available to meet with landowners. They do have a 25-acre minimum, but if you've got 25 acres, they can come out and meet and work with you on trying to encourage and promote wildlife of interest to you and on your property and what's supported in your area. So it's another important organization for woodland owners in the state, and you'll be able to meet with them as well. Next, I'd like to introduce the Kentucky Natural Resources Conservation Service. This is a federal agency, but we have a branch here in Kentucky, and they're a key partner when it comes to woodland conservation practices here in the state. Not only do they provide technical guidance and support, but they're also the main source of financial assistance to get some of these conservation practices implemented. One of their big programs is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, affectionately known as EQIP, and that program is available and it has many practices available within it to support woodland owners. So it's a good opportunity to get some of those costs covered when you're trying to manage your woodlands. So you'll get a chance to hear from them as well at our field tours. An important group, not a state agency, but a nonprofit organization, is the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association. This is a group of woodland owners that work very hard to try to do things that help woodland owners in the state. And they're a big sponsor of the Kentucky Woodland Owners Short Course, but they're also a key member as far as reaching out and connecting woodland owners. So it's a great opportunity if you're interested in finding like-minded people that care about their woodlands and want to take care of them and have gone through maybe some of the same struggles and challenges that other woodland owners have. Get to know the Kentucky Woodland Owner Association. If you're a member, I encourage you, if you're not a member, I encourage you to do so, especially if you're a woodland owner. It's a great organization, and they work very hard on behalf of woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky. Next is the Kentucky Tree Farm Program. You may have seen the Tree Farm Program or tree farm signs around the state. This is also a national program, but we have a chapter here in Kentucky. The Kentucky Tree Farm Committee administers the Tree Farm Program in the state. And it's a way to recognize woodland owners that have been managing their property for a while and are doing all that they can to try to enhance that property for a wide variety of reasons, whether it's wildlife or timber, water quality, or recreational opportunities. They are engaged in working with natural resource professionals. They're enrolled in programs, and they're doing everything they can to make their woodlands healthy and productive. So big thanks to the Kentucky Tree Farm Program. If you're one of those woodland owners that want to aspire and get some recognition for the great work that you're doing, that is a great program, and it'll gain you access to additional resources. One of the things it does offer is it provides a certification system as well. So there's something, if you're interested in that. And then next, we have a group here in Kentucky, the Kentucky Association of Consulting Foresters. And this is a group of men and women foresters that are private businesses, basically individual businesses that work on behalf of woodland owners. And they don't have a vested interest with any mills or anything like that. Their main job has to be working on behalf of their clients, the woodland owners. So they provide a lot of services to woodland owners. One of the key services that they provide that that you really can't get elsewhere is helping you navigate the timber sale process. While the Kentucky Division of Forestry can provide some assistance in that realm, it's really the Kentucky Association of Consulting Foresters that are key players that can help you navigate that timber sale process and really take a lot of that burden off of the woodland owner. They also play a really important role when it comes to timber trespass or timber damages, trying to assess those, and they're able to even go to court if necessary. So a big thanks to them, and you'll get a chance to hear from representatives of the Kentucky Association of Consulting Foresters at our field tours as well. So the last group I'd like to mention is the Kentucky Sustainable Forestry Initiative. This is a group that is basically some of our larger wood industries in the state to put in money to support good forest conservation in the state. And they do a lot of different things as far as with that, their financial support. But one of the things that they do is help support the Kentucky Woodland Owners Short Course, and we appreciate their support in that regard. So what can you expect at the 2022 Woodland Owners Short Course? It's really got 6 main parts. We're going to start off with a kind of, overall the program is a hybrid. So we have some online stuff that leads into some field tours. So we start off on July 19th. That's a Tuesday evening, and we're going to be talking about how to get started managing your woodlands. And also part of that night, we're going to be talking about tree identification. And then we move on to July 21st, woodland health, and July 26th, we're going to be talking about wildlife management. And then July 28th, we're going to be talking about woodland management and a changing climate. And those are all kind of lead-ins to the 2 field tours. So if you register for all 4 webinars and a field tour, you'll pick one of the field tours. And we have 2 offered, and they're in back-to-back weekends on Saturdays. August 6th is going to be at Penny Ryle State Forest. This is we're going to, at this tour, there's going to be a little bit of driving. So we'll all meet at one location, and then we'll have to drive individually out to a couple of different stops on Penny Ryle State Forest. We'll park at those locations, and then we'll have some short walks from those parking locations to check out some of the management practices that are going on there at Penny Ryle State Forest. That is managed and ran by the Kentucky Division of Forestry. So we appreciate them hosting us out there on August 6th. Then on August 13th, we're going to be at Berea College Forest. And this is more of a walking tour. So once you park your car and you join us at their Forestry Outreach Center, we'll be there for a little while. And then from there, we're going to be exploring the trails. And Berea has been working really hard on a wide variety of forest and woodland management practices. So we're going to be touring some of those practices, and but it will be more of a walking tour. So as you're thinking about which one you want to go on, I'll just let you know there'll be much less walking on August 6th, and then August 13th, you can expect to walk at least 2 miles, maybe a little bit more. It is on well-maintained trails, but there is quite a bit of walking that day. But that's how we're going to get around to see some of the great stuff that they're doing there in Berea. So I want to mention a little bit about each of these different sessions so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect at each one. So on managing your woodland, getting started or ramping it up on July 19th, I'll be talking about why and how we should manage our woodlands. And there's a wide variety of approaches, but I want to try to connect you all with the appropriate people at the right time. So, and I will let you know that, any more just that benign neglect or hands-off approach to woodland management may not end in what you want it to be. And Dr. Crocker will be talking about that a little bit later in forest health in the short course. But the problem is that there's a lot of threats that are facing our woodlands that we never had before. So it's really critical that you get the right technical assistance at the right time. And it's also important to get the right financial assistance when you need it. So I'll be trying to help you navigate that process of getting started or increasing your woodland management on July 19th. Also on July 19th, Laurie Thomas, who does our Trees of the Week here on From the Woods Today, she's going to be talking about tree identification. And with more than 100 trees native to Kentucky, there's a lot to learn. There really is. And all of these trees, they grow in different places and based on the habitat, whether it's, moisture or shade or climate or slope or soils, they all have kind of areas where they can do better than maybe some other trees. So that's important to understand. And when you're thinking about from a commercial standpoint, timber harvesting and timber sales, almost 50 of these species have some commercial timber value. So depending on where you're at, you may have a few more or a few less, but there are a lot of trees out there that do have commercial value. And it's because trees grow differently in different places and some are more apt to be successful in different locations, being able to identify trees is really important when it comes to trying to manage your woodlands. Now, obviously, our foresters and natural resource professionals in the state are quite knowledgeable of the trees here in Kentucky, but as a woodland owner, there's some real value for you to understand and know the trees that you have on your property. So Laurie's going to be teaching you the characteristics that we use to identify trees in Kentucky. She's basically going to be teaching you how to fish instead of just giving you a fish, if you will. Let me use that metaphor there. So you'll be able to learn the process through tree identification where you can really identify any tree. So make sure you join us on July 19th for that. And then we're going to shift on July 21st. Dr. Ellen Crocker is going to be leading a session on woodland health. And we all know that healthier woodlands are more productive. And I mentioned before, there is a lot of threats to our woodlands. So Dr. Crocker will be helping you understand what you're looking at when you're looking at your woodlands and some of the signs you might want to be looking for regarding some threats to your woodlands, whether it be invasive plants, insects, or diseases. All of these can really devastate woodlands to varying extents. So being able to recognize those and acting early on these threats is really important when it comes to woodland management. There's a lot of support out there to help woodland owners do this type of work. So she's going to help you learn how to address these different woodland health threats. So make sure you join us there on July 21st. And then the following week, we're going to have Dr. Matt Springer. He's our wildlife professor here, extension professor, and he's going to be talking about wildlife management. He's going to be talking about some of the different requirements that wildlife have, depending on what species you're interested in. Not everybody may be interested in large game. Some may be interested in birds or smaller animals. So Dr. Springer will help us understand kind of some of those requirements that wildlife has. And a lot of people own woodlands for wildlife. They're interested in attracting wildlife to their property. And that really comes down to the habitat management. And Dr. Springer will be helping us understand how to get some wildlife habitat management on the ground. And ultimately, you can get more than one thing out of your woodlands. And that's an important thing to remember, is that we can blend practices to yield multiple benefits. So one important thing that we try to stress is that you can integrate both wildlife and woodland management into one kind of woodland management plan, and we encourage you to do so. And then on July 28th, Dr. Jacob Muller is going to be talking about woodland management in a changing climate. I think we all recognize that climate is changing, maybe more rapidly than we wish. And that climate has a big impact on our woodlands, right? And not only on our woodlands, but how we go about trying to conserve and manage our woodlands. So Dr. Muller will let us know some of the current, maybe anticipated effects that the climate change is going to have on Kentucky woodlands. And the ideal is that, with that knowledge, then we can implement adaptation practices that can kind of help those woodlands be successful. There's also a growing voluntary carbon sequestration market, and we'll hear a little bit about some of that, what's going on in the carbon sequestration market as well from Dr. Muller. And then he's going to try to really identify these practices or actions that we can do to help our forests and woodlands navigate this changing climate. So that's an important session. So make sure you join us July 28th for Dr. Muller's session on woodland management and a changing climate. And then once we have all of those webinars online available, and we will record those. So if those dates don't work for you, you will have access to the recordings. And what we're hopeful is that people will have viewed those recordings in advance of our field tours. So as mentioned, we have 2 field tours. So when you register for the complete Woodland Owner Short Course, it includes all 4 webinars and 1 option of which field tour you want. So these field tours are going to run from approximately 9:30 to around 3 o'clock local time, give or take a few minutes. And, so we're going to be on Central Time at Pennyrile, and we're going to be on Eastern Time at Berea. So on August 6th, we're at Pennyrile State Forest. I mentioned it before, but this is a state forest managed by the Kentucky Division of Forestry. And that is the one that's going to have a little bit of driving, where we'll have to drive to a couple of various stops, and then we'll get out at those stops and we'll have some instruction at those stops. And then on August 13th, we're going to be down at Berea College Forest. And, this is the walking tour. So it's a great tour, well-maintained trails, but just be prepared to do a bit of walking on that day. So hopefully those will work for you and your schedule. And, if one date doesn't work for you, join us at the other one. If maybe you don't want to do as much walking, then perhaps Penny Ryle's better for you. And if you're excited about doing some hiking around the trails at Berea, then that may be a better option for you. But both will cover similar content. They'll just be a little bit different because the woods and wildlife are a little bit different in both locations. And some of the issues in Western Kentucky are a bit different from what we're dealing with in Central and Eastern Kentucky. So there'll be a little bit of tailoring to those specific locations to try to help woodland owners in both of those areas. So how do you get involved with this? So we have several registration options available, and they all start at this website. And you could probably just type in Kentucky Woodland on a Short Course and find us pretty quick. You can also find us off of our ukforestry.org homepage, and you can find us there. It's pretty quick too. So first, we have an individual registration. So if you're just one person, you're wanting to come, you want to do all the webinars, and you want to pick one of the field tours, that's going to be $20. If you're a couple, registration, it's going to be $30 for all the webinars and one field tour. So that's an option. And if you can't make any of the field tours, then we have a webinars only option for $10. So hopefully there's something for everybody at this year's Kentucky Woodland on a Short Course. And we hope to see you online and out in the woods. All right, Nay.
That was a great presentation. Thank you, Billy. But one thing I did want to tell people is that you did say it includes one tour for a couple, but that is for both people, not just one. It's just one.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah. And, we do that couple rate because we're really trying to encourage, more involvement in woodland management. The more family members and those that have a vested interest in those woodlands that are there at these educational opportunities, the better. So we provide a little discount to try to encourage and incentivize people to bring a buddy, bring a spouse, bring a child, bring a friend, bring a neighbor,
bring your brother,
bring somebody with you, basically, because as we learn together, it's really great. It gives people a chance to kind of bounce back off one another. And I think a lot of the learning that people get is actually from other woodland owners. So one of the things that people really enjoy about the Woodland Owner Short Course is the opportunity to learn about all the organizations that are available to help them, all the support that's there for them, as well as to kind of socialize and be around other woodland owners that are kind of dealing with the same thing. So we hope everyone will make plans to join us this year.
We have had a lot of people who because on their name badges we put what county, and they'll go, oh, they learn a lot of different woodland owners live in their county, and they didn't even know that they were there, but they may have traveled an hour and a half to get to us, but yet they were in that same county at one time. So
yeah, that's a good point, Renee. And it does happen quite a bit. I know we've actually created some relationships amongst woodland owners just through that very fact of them kind of finding each other at these events. So it's really a great chance for people in just in a limited amount of time to get a lot of information, make a lot of connections so that they can kind of roll that information back into how they take care of their woodlands at home.
Yep. And we'll feed you lunch, a good lunch too.
Oh yeah, no doubt. One of the things I guess I failed to mention, some of the goodies you get out of that is we do our best to have the best lunch that we can get. And we'll have that for you at both of those field tours. But we also will give you a binder that's chock full of information from many of the partner organizations that we have that support that. So it gives you a great resource, gives you ability to take notes while you're out in the field if you're interested. So that's one of the other goodies that you'll get with your registration.
Definitely. All right, Billy, you know what? I've told people that we were full of information, and we definitely were.
Yeah, it's a good show.
We had a really good show today.
I know. I really enjoyed Andrew and learning about Golden Eagles here in Kentucky and Bernheim, and looking forward to having them on again in the future. And then, as always, Laurie does such a great job with those trees of the week. And I'll remind folks that we've got so many of those trees of the week that are available. Please check out those trees. There's a lot of information in them, and they're really popular, and share them with others. People will really enjoy those.
And we need to remind people next week as well, we will not be live next week.
Right. In celebration of our nation's independence and the July 4th week, and many, many vacations going on, not only here, but around the Commonwealth. We're going to take next week off. It's a vacation week, but we'll hope to see you all the following week after that.
Definitely. And you know what? So we will definitely see you hopefully in 2 weeks at 11 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah. And I was going to say, if you missed anything, check us out online for sure.
FromTheWoodsToday.com. You can find every show we've ever done. You know what? Go next week to FromTheWoodsToday.com during our show time and find the show you haven't seen.
I was going to say, you could probably watch shows from next week all the way until we get back live. So we got so many.
Probably, exactly. We've got so many. You can binge watch us.
Yeah, there you go. And it's for free, right? So yeah, right. Come on. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
From the woods today.